So Rob Sanders, head of technology at JLL Managed Services. Rob and I met about 5 years ago, in fact, and the key thing that I was very conscious of, that JLL were wall to wall, had an ELA with Tableau, and it was going to be almost impossible to break in. And the only way we could break in was to be different. And write back was one of the reasons that Rob felt that, apart from the many things that Qlik has, write back was the key thing that he felt that was making the difference. So Rob, I think it'd be great to hear your story and see what you have for us.
Thanks, Gus. For those who don't know JLL, I won't go over this entire slide, you'll be pleased to know, but we're a real estate firm globally, second largest in the world. And we manage an awful lot of properties in the UK. So if I sort of skip to the next slide, the real crux of this is about our property management division. We've got 1,400 colleagues in the UK. We're across 8 offices, 200 odd clients, mostly large institutional or private investors, 4,000 odd properties. But the main stat for this is that we've got 25,000 tenants or customers who occupy buildings, and we handle about £6 billion worth of money. So if we were a company on our own in this division, we'd be in the FTSE 100. But that's our clients' money. So the most important thing to them is, can we get that money in from the 25,000 occupiers? So we started our journey with a requirement, and the requirement was actually about reporting to do with debt management. So again, a fairly dry topic, but given the current climate, collecting arrears is becoming quite prevalent. The big thing for us that we needed to have reporting, and we needed something where the underlying data could be mixed with a commentary system and a management system. So we were very much looking for an application. We weren't looking for a BI tool per se, and we weren't looking necessarily for a write back solution within a BI tool. But the biggest requirement we had was reporting and the analytics that we needed from that. And as Gus alluded to, when we started talking to data technology, one of the things that came out was that you could have, through the open source environment, a write back extension with Qlik. So what we've got here is just 4 examples of bits of data that our teams need to gather, and it was an absolute must-have to get an application in. We needed the ability to have drop downs, preset values. We needed the ability to diarise events, pick a date in the future where somebody will come back and be alerted to taking an action. We needed the ability to capture free format text, and we needed the ability to hit a checkbox if something needed to happen or be considered. So very basic things, but not things that we thought of when we were initially looking at Qlik or even Tableau. How does it work? Well, for us, it works on the screen that you're looking at, on the sort of general Qlik sort of layout that you would expect to see. The key thing here is that you've got the items on the left, as you see the screen, are in a sort of dark grey header, and they're coming from the source system. Obviously, we've had to protect tenant names and building names with that grey bar down the middle, but the headers indicate that that came from the source system. And the items light grey onwards, tenant legal going left to right, they're all items that we put into write. So whether that be the reporting notes on the right-hand side, or the follow-up dates, or the check boxes, or the drop-down statuses, that's all in write. And what that then gives us is the ability to bring data through into our reporting. And to Gus's point, one of the other things we did was just hook end printing on the end of it and automate communications out to the occupiers. So based on the data that was going into write, the data that was effectively being mashed up with the source system, we were then able to automatically or automate communications out from end printing to the occupiers. Your debt in 7 days' time will be X, or 14 days ago you owed a certain amount of money. The reason that's important, and I think Gus, you alluded to it earlier, is that the business case for us was about replacing initially a debt management system. And in context, the cost of putting in Qlik and the write back extensions for 400 users was less than a off-the-shelf debt management system for 40 users. So for us, that was a sort of obvious business case. But since then, we've moved on with Write, and some of the things that Ross was talking about are quite interesting because it becomes a bit of a roadmap and a bit of a journey. And some of the things that we've done since the initial business case, and I'll just sort of throw a few up here, almost to the point that was being alluded to, it's quick to use and develop. When COVID hit, one of the things that we needed to do very quickly was allow our site-based staff to say whether or not a property was in a good position, it was being monitored, or it had urgent action required in terms of the buildings being open or not open. And we needed to understand if buildings could even be mothballed, because if it was a retail park or a shopping centre, for example, and it had a pharmacy in it, we couldn't close that building down. Traditionally, we would have probably reacted to that with spreadsheets, trying to deal with that within the business, no visuals at all on top of that. By using the Write Back extension, we were able to immediately be in Qlik, see on a map, red, amber, green, see graphs, see information in a really insightful and powerful way. And effectively, we built an application used by about 800 people in 4 days, from start to finish in that first week of going into sort of lockdown consideration, which I don't think we would have been able to achieve that in almost any other platform. So it was worth sort of just bringing that out, because the speed of being able to react and then the inbuilt ability of Qlik having that information already in there meant there was no integration, there was no loading of data particularly. And it was very much a tool that was being used on site on iPads, on sort of web page. And for us, that was very powerful. And then what else do we do with it? Well, we generally enrich our data. So a lot of our source systems might have data in them that isn't sort of normalized or agnostic, and we'll use the Write extension to actually just go in and put a normalized value in. Or where we've got mandate applications, so where our staff are allocated to properties and given values of authority, we actually control all of that in Write rather than in underlying systems, so that we have a common view at the top that's pushed down to the underlying systems. And then generally, we just use it for recording commentary in internal and external reporting. So it really does sort of give us something quite neat in terms of once you've got the data in there, you're immediately seeing the reporting and the visuals from the Qlik and the end printing suite. And I'm hoping that was of some use.
I just wanted to ask, in terms of when you bought the software, or when you bought Qlik, can you just expand on why? I guess you can't put numbers or whatever, but there must have been a reason why the ROI was so great at the time.
So we did two tranches there, Gus. So the first ROI was the credit control one that I sort of talked to, which was we had a debt management system, and I guess as long as I don't say the other systems, it doesn't matter. So we had a debt management system where we were paying about £70,000, I think it was, per year. Sorry, £170,000 per year for 40 people to be able to access it, but then they had to send reports to other people. And I can't quite remember the numbers we got with you, but it was either the same or a bit less than that. Got us Qlik, end printing, and the Write Back extension for 400 users. So all of a sudden, we had the 40 people putting the information in, and the best part of 300 people doing self-service. And they were literally, the way the Write Back works for us is, our credit control team put things in at 11 o'clock, and at 11:03, the rest of the business can see the update, because it refreshes every 3 minutes or so. So they're almost seeing in real time the information. So that was the first business case. Having done that, it became very apparent to us that we could avoid costs in our other systems that we still had, where we were using a lot of license cost to effectively get people going into an ERP system to just run reports. We decided to take the data out of the ERP systems, put it up into Qlik, and effectively swap out license A for license B, ERP system for Qlik. I think that saved us somewhere in the region of 750,000 per annum as a net figure, increasing Qlik, decreasing in other licenses. And with that, we also had Write. So we've had a lot more use of Qlik because people are putting information in that they wouldn't have normally sort of used that for. So they would have thought of it just as reporting, but now they can put their commentary in, which comes out on the reporting, and that's really powerful. So before, you'd see reports exported into Excel, commentary put in, maybe someone looked at that once a quarter. Now you're seeing people put commentary in, and it's kind of there all the time, and it's a very different way of working, but the reporting's there as well at the back end.
Rob, you should have told me at the time you were going to save 750,000. I would have put my prices up.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the business case then, but yeah. But yeah, I mean, without getting into all the details, I mean, it's clearly, if you can surface the information in one reporting platform rather than having lots of systems underneath where you're paying lots of licenses, yes, there's an upfront. Can you get that data into the form that you want, and can you use it? But that investment ultimately pays off if your license fees go down accordingly.
Also, Rob, moving forward, if customers and you're using QAP perhaps, and Write actually works pretty well with QAP. So clients or even end customers, I guess, I don't know, but mainly clients can actually come onto the portal and use Write back?
Potentially, yeah. We've thought about that, because one of the things, we haven't done it yet, just to be clear, but one of the things that we often get asked or told is that an asset manager at a client is responsible for property, but often our data's out of date because they forget to tell us that that's changed. If we actually just made it available in Write for them to either free format type, or they told us and we added a number of people to a drop down list that they could pick from, fundamentally they could maintain that core bit of data themselves, which is really powerful because they often want to slice the reporting view they've got by their asset manager. And actually they have to come to us, we have to put it in our source system, it has to feed up to Qlik. It would be so much easier if we just said, well, actually change that field yourself using this app that we give you, and it would then just be there. So it's definitely something we've thought about, but it's not something we've currently done. But yeah, those sort of use cases can be very powerful.